comic about the story? And they say yes, and everybody said yes because everybody's happy because she's a woman. So I traveled to New York in September, and I interviewed the family, and they told me everything, all the details. So this is the work I'm doing right now. This is a magazine from Diego Gonzalez. That university has a very nice publishing department, and so I published the prologue. It's like 5 pages about how I came up with the idea of doing a comic about that story, and it's also a comic about my life in New York from another point of view. This is the last 2 years in New York, and this is like the whole thing. It's an experience as an immigrant, working as a babysitter. I couldn't speak English when I got there. I learned to speak there. So there's many stories that are not here. So I'm working, telling the story of Amanda, of the father, of the mother, and of me, changing the country and, experiencing to be an immigrant in New York. So that's pretty much, my work in comics.
Thank you
It's
very
okay.
much.
How long was it?
I was seeing.
I usually talk a lot, so.
I was looking at everyone's faces in the audience, and there were a lot of nodding, right? A lot of taking notes. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. And please.
I don't know where to begin with.
Rewind, please.
I don't know. Very quickly, I have, I came here when I was 7. I was a pretty outgoing kid in Cuba, and I got here. This is New York City. The family's like scared of everything that's moving, and my dad is like, it's better if we stay in the house for like at least 10, 15 years until we learn the language. And he wound up getting me a bunch of paper and just sitting me down and saying, here's some stuff, here's some comics. Next thing you know, I'm looking at Jack Kirby's work and Frank Robbins' work, and all the great, really great illustrators and comic creators of that time, and which, in my point of view, is like the golden time of comics. And none of those guys could probably get a job now in Marvel comics, which is kind of funny. Because Jack Kirby, I don't like the way you draw. But everybody had their own unique style. You can pick up a Kirby book and it was paced differently, it looked differently, it just had, and then you had picked up a book by Frank Robbins was doing comics, and all these great artists they were all riffing and playing around. It was like jazz, you pick up the X-Men and it was like, whoa, Kirby's doing this, and then somebody else was doing the Fantastic Four, and John Buscema was doing it for a while. So it was like an education, and for a kid, an immigrant kid, it was a little bit of a doorway into classical myths, which was, Jack Kirby, right? The Hulk was, Robert Louis Stevens was, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So that was a big introduction to this, Kirby's work on the Thor was an introduction to the Norse mythology that I would later mine like crazy for this book. So it was a great way of learning all this stuff without having to get beaten up at school. So anyway, you draw, and like the journey of every artist, you keep drawing until you go to school for it, and you somehow are lucky enough to find people that can support you. Like this crowd here. I'm actually willing to listen to this stuff. So, I went from working at, I started really young working at Disney. I was doing Disney animation when I was still in college. And I discovered oh my God, you have to pay money, to live. And they, so I wound up getting caught into this dark web of character merchandising, which paid tons of dough. I mean, tons, crazy amount of money so that you could design shampoo bottles. And it was easy, I was like, hey, I'm doing it, man. It's easy dough. I get to do the stuff I want. And, like any easy dough, they take about 6 or 7 pounds out of your gut, and then you're sold. So, but I wound up doing it for like, God knows, 20-something plus years. And I wound up working on Disney merchandising for a long time. And then Warner's, I did from 1992 until like 2004. Everything that you ever picked up with Bugs Bunny, any of those crazy characters I touched at some level. Or at more than some level, Warner and So, throughout this whole thing, stuff is brewing because I'm thinking of, what is it all about, right? I'm going to die soon at some point. What am I going to leave behind, something for the aliens to excavate. Come down and find this Bugs Bunny thing and go, ooh. And that will be it, I can't do that, so things happened at Warner's, and I won't go into that, but I wound up taking my own, for the first time I was looking at my own, what am I going to do artistically? And I started saying, well, I have this story here. And I started playing around, and then it's one of these things that when the floodgates are open, they just go. Everything just, I sit down at home, and for the next 3 or 4 months, I don't even move. I'm just a drawing machine, I'm like on Red Bull all day because this stuff is like there's something like just being pumped through, and I don't even know what's going on. It's like, you're just writing and you're thinking, I don't know, figure it out, and it's starting to see a connection, and you live and breathe it all the time. That's the thing that I admire, about art, is that you have to live and breathe it all the time. If you stop it, like, I'll take a week off, it leaves. It's very fleeting. So you got to hold on to it when it comes, and you just, you got to surf it through it, and something comes out. And then I started to see, this is an opportunity to play around with mythology and maybe even tell a little bit of story about this and that. And as I was talking to some people this afternoon, I really admire what you do because there's a lot of guts, I think it takes, to be able to reveal your innards, to the world and say, this is what I did and who I am. I have the option of talking through a dog, who smokes a cigar. So it's very, very easy for me to get away with stuff. But it is what I would say a fictional biography of a small kid who was me at the time. I'm working on another book right now, 2 other books. One is about Washington Heights, and it has a little bit more, it's grounded in more reality, but like everything I do, I have to put a giant robot and, some sort of Kirby-esque thing going on. And then I'm working on another one about my dad, who passed away, and he was a shoemaker for a long time in Cuba. And it's kind of like, that's kind of fun. But you know what? Even then, I feel like at some point, some giant robot's going to figure it out.
With big shoes.
I'm happiest when I'm working on a surrealistic fantasy, and that's how I look at the mirror, and I wish I could say I'm going to do this realistically. I've tried, believe me, I've tried, but it filters. It comes out, and the next thing you know, I'm doing cubistic stuff and all this stuff.